This is Curious Brain Thoughts.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Louise.
How are you?
Marvellous.
Why are we here?
Great question. Well, welcome to you lovely listeners over in Listenerland. Hopefully you're sitting comfortably, and then we'll begin. Welcome to Curious Brain Farts, the show where we talk about some stuff that we think is curious, generated by the random theme generator.
Could you help us all out, Paul, by letting us know what a curious brain fart actually is?
Yes, indeed. It's very much like a normal brain fart. The curious bit is because we're interested in it, and the brain fart itself is when an idea starts to percolate through to the point where it has to pop out. You can't hold it in anymore. You just got to let it go,
Love that.
which is nice.
Lovely.
And we do actually love to hear from others. You know, we're having listeners emailing us with things that they would like us to get curious about. Lou, how? Please tell us how.
Oh, so using the World Wide Interweb, you can email us curiousbrainfarts@gmail.com.
Marvellous.
Amazing.
I think that's absolutely splendid. So, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. My dog Nigel is here. He's lush, but he does want me to play with this toy. So my apologies if you can hear doggy things in the background. That's just
Lou dogging.
That's just.
Isn't that right, Nige?
It's just the way
He's
it goes.
a good boy. He likes his pee.
He's got a toy.
Is that the pee?
Father Christmas gave him a pea pod with 3 peas in it, and only one of the peas is surviving. But he does love it. It's his favourite.
He does love it, and he's pestering me right now with his pee.
That sounds very, very wrong. We do mean an actual pea.
Not urine.
No.
A vegetable.
Not urine.
There's another episode on vegetables. I'm not sure if peas came into it.
Talking of episodes, what shall we talk about in today's episode?
Well, why ask me?
I am asking you.
I said, well, why ask me?
Because you know the answer.
Do I?
I don't know, do you?
Well, depends who gets. I tell you what, I'll race you to the
Okay.
random theme generator,
That's
and the first one to get there
guess it.
gets. Stop it now, right? Because we have to take our headphones off so we can run over to the random theme generator.
Yeah, I'm already
Run
there.
back again. What you? Huh?
I've already got my headphones off.
Right. Okay. Good. So on your marks, guess it, go.
I won. Ha ha.
And you took your mic with you.
You're welcome, everyone. I'm going to pull the lever.
Go.
Random theme generator. Random theme generator.
And, oh, this is an interesting one. We have fear as our subject.
Sounds terrifying.
Let's do our traditional definition.
I am afraid Nigel might pee on something. I won't lie to you. He's walking around, crashing into the old
Oh, bless him.
mic stands, sniffing at the cables.
Right. Fear. An unpleasant emotion caused by the threat of danger, pain, or harm. That's the noun version. The verb is to be afraid of someone or something as likely to be dangerous, painful, or harmful.
Because I was thinking about it as, you know, the things, how fear affects me. So not necessarily thinking of a scary thing or a dangerous thing. I think fear has maybe has become more complex because, you know, first of all, being afraid that the saber-toothed tiger is going to eat you,
Yeah.
to
That's,
now
That's very sensible. If they're hanging around the
to
corner.
be mindful of. Whereas now you might be afraid of saying the wrong thing in a meeting, or talking to senior people, or asking someone out on a date that you think's lovely jumbly.
Sorry, I just stood on the pee.
Or afraid of, you know, crashing into things whilst recording a podcast.
Sorry about it. Hashtag real life.
Hashtag real life. Afraid of
Failing.
yeah. Of embarrassing yourself or whatever. You know, there's so many aspects which aren't just saber-toothed tigers.
However, we haven't had long enough with all of those other topics around for our brains to evolve. So we've still got the saber-toothed tiger
Response.
amygdala response, the fight, flight, freeze, flop fawn. That's still there, but we don't have any saber-toothed tigers. Well, most of us don't. So
And if you do, write in.
/ run away. So what happens, and we all know this. This is well documented. Is that part of our brain is now used for things like, I'm going to. Paul's just thrown the P somewhere difficult. I'm going to say the wrong thing in that meeting. Etc. Etc. Sorry, I am distracted by this P. Nigella. Oh God, Nigella. So it's that kind of vibe, isn't it? We use that part of our brain is still used by us.
Yeah.
But rarely in our modern culture for the thing it was actually designed for.
Yeah.
So we're more anxious and stressed and worried as a result.
And like, I was working with someone the other day who had a big presentation to give in front of an audience that they found particularly daunting.
Right.
And, you know, they were saying their response has been, you know, their mouth goes very dry. Mm-hmm. They won't drink during the presentation in case they get drunk. No, they won't drink water during the presentation because they're worried they might spill it on themselves. You know, that's how much of a visceral reaction they're having. And it is so interesting, this over reaction physiologically to these things. You know, being afraid of a roller coaster or whatever. Our mum is doing a wing walk for the second time because the first time she was very disappointed. She said she'd been on scarier roller coasters. So now she's doing it the second time. She can do barrel rolls and loop the loops, which hopefully she'll enjoy.
Yes.
And it's interesting, the fear threshold for people. Like, some people hear that and they're like, oh my goodness, bear in mind she's 82 and a massive legend. Some people who hear that are like, why would you ever do that? Why would you stand on top of a plane?
Yes. So fear is definitely a movable feast. You might find something frightening. For me, it's easy breezy.
Yep.
And that's to do with the filter of our experiences, right? Or some people enjoy a jump scare in a film or a suspenseful, or I don't know, oh my God, the baddie's going to get them. For me, I find that excruciating. I have to get up, do the washing up. I can't.
Yeah.
Just sit there in that suspense. So that tells you something about my ability to deal with strongly felt uncomfortable feelings. I find it really, really difficult. I need to divert my attention.
It's like our nieces and nephews like to go to, there's what they call a theme park nearby, and they love to go there at Halloween when they do all the really scary actors jumping out at you.
Yes.
And, and they absolutely love it. while screaming their heads off.
Yes.
Absolutely pooing themselves.
Yes.
It's like, oh, interesting.
Yes. So fear is a source of entertainment.
Yeah.
Nigel's chewing an antler on the floor. I'm so sorry. It's really crunchy. You probably hear it.
It's not connected to an animal anymore. No. Just to clarify.
It's not a dead deer. That would be awkward. So, yes, fear. I think that there's it's all very, very unique to each individual, and we know that we feel this response for things that it's not designed for in our brains. And so things like fearing things like failure, it's not the failure necessarily. For me personally, it would be the associated shame and judgment and, inferences on me as a person that failure might, that's a story I'm telling myself,
Yes.
making it. So none of this stuff is real. We're just all telling ourselves different stories about it.
It's intangible.
Yes, very much so. But it feels, to your point about that person doing the presentation, it can feel absolutely disabling.
Yeah, it's interesting because the difference with, I wonder, I'm just trying to rack my brains to see if there's a difference between being faced with something physical that would strike fear in me versus something intangible. And wondering what the response difference might be like in me. Because what I imagine is that with something physical, I can see what's going on. I might go into more of an automatic space. I don't know. I could completely I don't know. I'm just trying to think if I can see like a car coming, which, oh my gosh, I think it's going to hit me, jump out the way or whatever. Yeah. Whereas if I think about, oh my goodness, crossing that busy road, what if I don't make it? And then it's not a car potentially coming towards me. I could have planes crashing into me. I could have all sorts of things because it's completely intangible. It's stuff that I am creating for myself. I wonder how that differs.
I don't know if it does, and I'll tell you for why. Because, in my opinion, I don't think our brains know the difference between imagination and reality. Paul's just mouthing that at me because I say it all the time. Because I really believe that to be true. And so that's why catastrophizing can be disabling and things like that, because we're feeling, we're activating that fight or flight response. Oh my God, do I need to jump out the way? That's where the sweaty hands and the beating heart comes from, the sick feeling in the stomach, because we've activated something and there's nowhere to put the energy. So I'm thinking about, in my old age, I've developed a little bit of vertigo. I never used to have it. Now, a few years ago, we went to Canada to visit some family in Canada. It was a memorial for our dear cousin Alex, who unfortunately and very suddenly and very young died. And so we went to the celebration of his life. And while we were there, we were doing some touristy things in Toronto. And we went to the CN Tower. And I'd been up the CN Tower before. And I was like, yeah, fine. Going up in that lift, I felt absolutely sick. I couldn't look out the window. We get up there and I'm glued to the inner wall. Luckily, the glass floor bit wasn't open because they were renovating it.
Shame.
It was a shame for everyone else, but for me, I was quite grateful because, and last time when I went to the CN Tower, I jumped up and down on that glass floor, and I looked straight down, no problem. When I looked down, I went dizzy, I felt sick, and I wasn't necessarily afraid per se, but I didn't like those physical sensations, and so I stayed back from the edge as much as I could. And the other day, my son and I were watching something on the telly, and there's an experience at the CN Tower where you can go out and lean over your. And he said to me, "Mum, the next time we go to Canada, you should do that. Face your fear, and you can overcome it." So there's something about fear as a way of keeping us stuck. It's not real in the sense that I never used to be afraid of heights or get any vertigo, and now I do. Does that mean then that I could expose myself to, a challenging experience, or just gradually expose myself to more and more high up things, and I would overcome it? I think that that can be true. Exposure therapy type of vibes.
Yeah.
Because the old brain, the old neuroplasticity, innit? It's not real. I've created it for myself.
Yes, and there is some, just thinking about that example, there is some cognitive dissonance, because otherwise you'd be able to reconcile it in your head.
Yeah.
And go, oh yeah, of course, yeah. And holding that cognitive dissonance, I'm up high, and that's a really dangerous thing to do, leaning over the edge of a building. That's silly. Versus there's loads of safety ropes and blah, 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 and there's never been a reported accident. And it's holding those two things together, and it's almost like a system overload.
Yeah.
Which then just starts to default to type.
Yes. It's really interesting because sometimes when people are, when people are getting in their own way, and it's... So, for example, I'm afraid or very uncertain. I don't know if, and this is me just giving an example, but I did used to be quite like this. I was very uncertain sending emails to senior people. Now it doesn't bother me at all, but when I was younger it did. And if you ask yourself the question, if I had to teach somebody else how to do this, what are the steps they'd have to go through? So you reframe the fear or the uncertainty, and you make yourself the expert in it. And now that you're the expert and you can accurately break down all the steps, in breaking down the steps, you start to unpick how you get yourself to that place, and then it enables you potentially to choose something else. So I do think it can be rewired. You can tune in differently, work on it, and
100%.
get yourself out of a fearful state.
And there's also many situations where it is learnt through experience. So there's fear from inexperience.
Yes.
For example, when was the last time you hung over the edge of a building with a rope attached to you?
Never.
Great. And then there is the fear through experience, and thinking about the changing gears, like constantly being hurt by something, and then fearing that thing happening again.
Yep.
So that can become quite complicated. There are certain things that you can... I'm not saying it's not possible to get over those kind of things. I'm saying they're a lot more complicated because they are connected to different parts of us, as opposed to being able to maybe reason or rationalise something and gradually work through something and, build up a tolerance to some of those things. Other situations where you have very ingrained experience of fear, of having experienced something that has caused you harm or whatever, and then being afraid of that, I wonder how differently that is handled.
It's fascinating because I was reading a book yesterday about beliefs. It's an NLP book, and it was saying there's an NLP phobia cure that is it's fast. So people come in afraid of going in a lift, afraid of spiders, afraid of whatever, and they do a session with this person and they're no longer afraid of spiders or whatever it is. And he gave an example of this woman, and her perception was that you can do this phobia cure thing and then she wouldn't be afraid anymore. But she was afraid of, I can't remember what it was now, but it was something that was linked to her job, which was part of her identity. And so, because the fear was linked to part of her identity, how she identified herself and expressed herself, then it wasn't okay for her to have that solved. Yet, to your point, it was more complicated because it was linked to something that was part of her identity, and therefore she would have been a different person if that thing had gone away. Even though it didn't, even though she was afraid of it and it didn't really work for her. Actually, it also required her to reframe who she thought she was and potentially be different, and that required more support and help.
Because the fear of something happening can concretely drive you to work incredibly hard to avoid that thing from happening.
Yeah.
So sometimes that can be beneficial, because if you're working very hard to avoid a fear happening, like, having no money or something like that, the fear of losing your house or whatever else, can give you the drivers and the motivation to work really hard in very positive ways. And so you could imagine, by clearing something like that, this fear of not having any money or something, you can imagine how, like this example with this person, how that could feel really wobbly. Well, hold on a minute, because the fear of the saber-toothed tiger behind the door is the thing that keeps me going, that actually makes me get out of bed every day and beat the door down and et cetera, et cetera. So if you take that thing away, where's my energy source coming from? And then they're afraid of the unknown. Yeah. So
it's not necessarily all bad. I think, I do love a deadline. Because if you say to me, Lou, you've got 3 months to write this large piece of work, blah, 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 or you've got 3 months to design this program, what I will do is go to some seminars, read some interesting books, have some interesting conversations. I won't put pen to paper until we're 2.5 months into the 3 months, or, even more than that, because I need maybe it's not fear, it's pressure, but, like the kind of, oh, Christ, if I don't, so if you give people infinite everything, then to your point, where's the impetus? So in the sense that it applies helpful pressure to us, then anything, no feeling is bad if it applies some helpful pressure that moves us forward and gets us where we want to go. But if it disables us, if it stops us, then of course we can choose to do something about it.
So fear is layered. It's obviously very old. Some fears are passed down to us without us even having done anything.
100%.
And they can also be super great motivators for us to do good, positive things in our lives. Interesting. Well, see you next time.
Laters.
Curious Brain Thoughts.